This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to PTBN's NBA Team Podcast, where we've been giving you a series, parts, installments for our NBA season preview as the NBA is tipping off again this week, and we're finally getting to the last stretch. We got about, 6 or 7 teams here?
Finally, we've come to an end, and we actually recorded an intro this time as opposed to the last two where we forgot.
Well, we've been having there's a lot of, you'll never believe this, but there's a lot of teams in the NBA, Adam. There's 30?
There's got to be more than 12, and since we don't just gloss over the entire thing in an hour, it really becomes time consuming. But here we are, final one. So I think we should start with the 2018-19 NBA champion Golden State Warriors. Don't you agree?
Yeah, well, let's go for it. So they are probably going to win the NBA championship. And do you have anything else to say, Adam?
Nope.
No, we have to talk about something.
Okay.
I got to say this. Let me just say this about the Warriors last season. There was a little bit of a struggle there for 2 reasons. Number one, injuries to Kevin Durant's minor ones for Durant. He didn't miss that much time. And then Steph Curry with his knee. But the truth is, once Curry came back, they were sort of back in shape. But they also, and this is the second part of why they had a struggle, is that they actually had what you would consider a comparable opponent, and that was the Houston Rockets, who pushed them to a 7th game. But they won the 7th game after Chris Paul got injured and couldn't play the last 2 games of the series. And then they went on and just crushed the Cavs in the finals. I don't even mention that because it was just such a one-sided affair.
Yeah, and we're not going to, injuries during the season, yes, we said that was they had no bench, and you couldn't rely on 38-year-old David West and JaVale McGee and all the other assorted fodder. But this year is much the same. At first, everybody was all upset when Boogie Cousins took the $5 million. Sure,
yeah, it was about $5 million. Yeah, just a little over. So.
People were upset. Okay, that's it. How is this? This is shenanigans. But then you start thinking about it. It's well, is he going to be the one? Is he going to be the sort of the one that tips the boat? And his style doesn't mesh with that team.
Yeah, he played on a fast-paced team in Sacramento, but Sacramento was a dumpster fire when Boogie was the main man there. So you can't really go by those results and say, well, he can fit there. They played kind of fast in New Orleans, but that was a team where everything was sort of centralized around him and Anthony Davis's strengths. And, Cousins averaged quite a few triple-doubles with New Orleans. I don't know if that's going to be the design when he goes to Golden State. I think he's sort of used as like a plug-and-play type of a player.
You think they're just going to say, here you go destroy the second unit for 20 minutes and get every point you can?
Well, first of all, I don't know the innuendo yet, but I'm pretty sure he will not be ready to start this season. I would have to assume maybe at least December or January.
Oh, December he won't be back to full speed till All-Star break, and even then he'll probably be on a minute restriction.
Yeah, but he won't even be on the court playing for the Warriors until maybe December.
Oh yeah,
and that's optimistic.
Oh yeah, he's not. He's gonna be on the bench, and then but when he does come in, he doesn't fit with that quick pass offense, and he'll just sort of be the odd man out down there. And it's as bad as it is. You don't want to say it, but yeah, he comes with baggage. Yeah, he comes with an attitude. Could he? And last year, that team, you watch the Warriors, they did not look like they were having fun at all.
No, I think they were one of the top teams in the league in ejections. Kevin Durant on his own had 5. Now, a lot of people would attribute that to, they're sort of stuck up and they're spoiled and they think their shit doesn't stink, and that's why they get a lot of technical fouls because they start bitching at the referees. Everybody remembers the incident with Sean Livingston where he basically headbutted the referee. The referee got suspended, and so did Livingston because they were somewhat both in the wrong. You did pinpoint a big problem that they had, which was lack of depth. When they had Quinn Cook starting in place of Curry when Curry was out, that was shaky ground for a while. They were losing a handful of games.
When you're relying on again Quinn Cook and Sean Livingston to really do anything, and other than their usual 15 minutes, it's going to be a rough go around. But it's just it's like this team went from like, oh, that we love them, they're darlings, to we just don't like them anymore. They're not a fun, they don't look like they're. People have turned on Curry and Draymond always.
They're heels. They're bad guys. I mean, they are the bad guys. And I think I don't want to say they've embraced it, but I do feel like that they're not running away from what their persona is in the eyes of others. They know what they are.
But the bad guys were like LeBron. LeBron was like the NWO, like they're having fun, and like, okay, we'll be the bad guys. Come on, they're
running roughshod. Yeah,
they'll play the hero. These guys just look like, yeah, we're just miserable fucks, and we, screw everybody.
But they're ring wearing, championship banner waving, really talented, super great, miserable players. That's the thing. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say the players, because we saw Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City, and not so great. When Steph Curry, even when him and Klay Thompson were there before Andre Iguodala was there and Mark Jackson was coaching the team, not so great. When you put it all together, along with Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala, who's going to be turning 33 years old, and Livingston as like your super sub, I mean it's still an amazing core of team. They do lose David West. JaVale McGee went to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Patrick McCaw experiment didn't work out due to health issues, and Zaza Pachulia is gone. So they did have to plug in some new people.
I'm just going to pause that the Patrick McCaw experiment didn't last because Patrick McCaw says, "Hey, you guys should pay me," and they just sort of laughed at him.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't, they haven't re-signed him yet as of this, and it doesn't look like they're going to, because I guess they offered him like a 2-year deal, and he's like, no, I want more, and they just said, okay, thank you.
It's sort of a much, much smaller version of what happened with the Pelicans and DeMarcus Cousins, in a way.
Well, the Cousins thing was just, who knows where the truth lies, somewhere in the middle of that story, but this one was just like, everyone's like, why isn't he signed like anywhere? And it's just like, nope, he still thinks he could get paid somewhere, sort of like Des Bryant in the NFL. It's like, somebody's going to come with me with a contract, somebody's going to give me $30 million. Okay, you keep waiting.
A lot of people are still staring down the free agency that's going to be coming up for Klay Thompson. There's all this talk where Klay Thompson says he's happy and he'll want to stay there, but we don't see pen to paper yet. So there's always going to be speculation until he signs on the dotted line. And then there's, of course, the fact that they're so far over the luxury tax. When you're winning championships and you're opening a new arena, which they'll be after this season, like you can afford those losses. But when your luxury tax bill, which is going to be estimated after 2019 or 2020, when it starts falling into like the $300 to $250 million range, now things change. Now you have to really start thinking about the long-term stability of that core.
We said the same thing last year.
What do you think about that? I did, but what it is that
it's their team as long as they want to pay for it. If they want to pay $60 million for their championship, they'll pay $60 million. Okay, you want to pay 60? Okay, this year you're paying $100 million. Yeah, we'll pay $100 million. Okay, how about next year pay $150? Well,
let me ask you this: do you think Kevin Durant is I'm trying to put this in the best way, because he sort of took a bit of a discount the previous year. Do you feel like he's sort of leaving Golden State out to dry in the same way LeBron did in Cleveland by doing these constant 2-year deals with the second year being an option, meaning he can opt out and make more off of a 35% supermax over and over again, and basically hold his bird right so that he can get whatever money he wants? What I'm saying is that he does not have a fixed salary for the next 2 or 3 years like LeBron has right now with the Lakers. This is one where it's probably going to go up, and that little bit that he's going to want in addition might be what costs them another key player.
Well, that's the thing is, he bets on, I'm just going to bet myself, and the way the CBA is written, yeah, you could totally do that, but let's say he tears his Achilles this year. Are you going to want to offer him the Supermax coming off Achilles?
Well, if Kevin Durant tears his Achilles this year, then the Golden State Warriors aren't winning the NBA championship. Yeah, and everything changes.
Agreed. But again, that's the issue you're doing with that 1 year. If LeBron got injured, are you going to start offering that 4-year deal? Then all of a sudden that 4-year deal becomes a 3-year deal, and maybe you'll do a team option for that 3rd year because you're coming off it. So Tim Duncan did the same thing back.
Well, and the dynamic is different because of the fact that Durant came in He was perceived as the turncoat when he left Oklahoma City. And I feel like that's a little bit of the part of why I don't want to say they look miserable, because they're winning 60-plus games every year and they're winning championships. But there is that sense of, why don't you like us, And Durant's exit and going to Golden State and being the newcomer it's a part of it. That's why Jordan Bell's in the fold. They drafted up to get him. That's why Kevon Looney's in the fold. They wanted him.
Yeah, I think Looney didn't really do anything.
But what I'm saying, it's kind of like a sewing circle. Like if you're one of the chosen ones for Bob Myers and Steve Kerr, then you're good. You're good as gold. After that, like if you're one of these like two-way contract guys, like even one of those one-year deals like they had with Omri Caspi and Nick Young last year, and this year it's Jonas Jerebko. I mean, you're just there to be a helper, and then goodbye.
Yeah, you're just a one-year hired gun. But, just to sort of wrap up Golden State, any chance that they don't win if everybody's healthy?
If everybody's healthy, no. Because, I do wonder about losing David West, because now Kevon Looney and Jordan Bell really have to step up, and I don't know. I think Bell is ready defensively, but Looney, I am still not sure. So, and then Sean Livingston's age worries me, and Andre Iguodala is going to fall off a cliff eventually. I just don't know when it's going to happen. I feel like in the postseason he has his moments where he looks really bad. And then there's injuries happen to every team, but especially with Curry's knee, you always got to keep an eye on that. Overall though, I don't see him losing. It would have to be just a great push from one of those other teams behind them in the West, like Houston, the LA Lakers. Help me out here. Who are some of the other teams in the West that are sort of way up there?
No, there aren't any.
And then you got Boston in the East, but then that's your best shot, because you'll have an equal quote-unquote super team coming into the finals, and now all your challenges in your conference are through. You got to just win one series and win the championship. And now we're going to be talking about the Houston Rockets, who, because we just hit on Golden State, and, Houston was about the closest competitor that they had. Let me ask you this. Let's just go retroactive here. Did you feel at any point in that series, even after Game 5 when they won and they went ahead 3-2, that Houston was winning that series, that Golden State was not going to win that series?
No, I thought Houston gave it more of a valiant effort than I thought they would, but then once you saw D'Antoni ran Chris Paul into the ground, and it was all over.
Chris Paul with the hamstring at the end of Game 5, which cost him in Game 6 and 7. So.
Yeah, that was I'm going to play you for 40 minutes, 45 minutes. You can't play him 40 minutes. I'm going to do it, okay. And
yeah, but Paul's one of those guys where you can't tell him to come out the game. He is the coach. Mike D'Antoni's just sitting there with the clipboard for the most part. It
is what it is, and then this year they've decided to triple down on their team, and I don't know.
The interesting thing about the Rockets is that, Mike D'Antoni it was coaching, and then James Harden, Eric Gordon, Ryan Anderson was there, but he was in a limited role. So people kind of looked at them like, oh, it's basically going to be the same Rockets team, but you're adding Chris Paul and a couple other guys. But it really wasn't. It was very different because they added guys like PJ Tucker and they had Trevor Ariza, and they were able to play a much better defensive game plan compared to most D'Antoni coach teams in the past. They still took a lot of threes. They were first in three-pointers made. They were 11th in three-point field goal percentage. But defensively, that was where the improvement came in. They won 65 games, kind of ran pretty quickly, I want to say, through Minnesota and Utah. I know that they dropped one game in each of the series, but I just remember thinking those two teams don't have a shot against Houston. That's how good Houston was. Then came the main event for many, and that was the Golden State-Houston series. Went 7 games, but without Paul in those last 2, they just couldn't survive. James Harden just looked exhausted in the last game.
They were completely wiped out. And then, this year, well, they dump Ryan Anderson, who that was their, he's going to be great. He'll be a stretch. How they
pulled off that trade to Phoenix, I will never know.
There's a reason their GM was just mysteriously fired like a week before the season starts, which doesn't happen.
Yeah, very strange.
So I don't know if that was related at all, but still, it could coincidental timing. But They get rid of him, and then we need Melo, we need Melo, we need Melo. I don't, for one, Trevor Ariza decides not to re-sign there and goes to Phoenix for $15 million. That I don't understand why he would leave.
Explain the significance of the Ryan Anderson deal for the casual fan here, the casual listener. He had a $20 million salary.
He was the reason they couldn't get Melo. They couldn't get anybody was because his contract was holding everything up because he was virtually untradeable, or so we thought.
Let me ask you this. If they were able to remove Ryan Anderson earlier than that, would they have had a good shot at LeBron James?
I don't think so. I thought LeBron would be like, I want to go ring chasing, but instead he just wanted to be Hollywood. And it's like, okay, I understand that. But it was just, they get rid of Ryan Anderson. You get Marquise Chris, who doesn't know how to play, but all he needs to do is just run and catch alley-oops from Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm. And listen, PJ Tucker is almost like he's a less athletic but kind of smarter version of what Marquise Chris, like the role that Marquise Chris plays, which is that.
That's what DeAndre Jordan built a career out of with Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have somebody else, this kid who doesn't know anything else other than just doing that one thing. Okay, yeah, sure, not a problem. But the only problem is like we said, you have Carmelo, who you got for nothing because Oklahoma City was desperate to get rid of him.
Melo's done. I mean, if you watch him in Oklahoma City, that was a guy with very low efficiency that was overplayed. They gave him too many minutes. In a real-world scenario, which is probably what's going to happen with Houston because the goal is to win games, I'm pretty sure that Melo will be limited to, I want to say, about maybe 25 minutes, 27 minutes a game.
The question is now, who do they – your three is very thin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of worrisome now
because of Ariza's exit.
Yeah, you Ariza leaves and you didn't bother trying to replace him. You were so hell bent on we need Melo. Chris Paul's probably lobbying for him and it's like we got to get him.
They did re-sign Gerald Green. And then they signed James Ennis, who I guess they have plans on him to be able to play the three. That will obviously be your weak link on your starting lineups unless you go super small with Gordon at the three, which they've done before, or you go big and you have either Tucker and Capella play or Melo and Capella play.
And I guess the good thing is you have Clint Capella, who they re-signed him to a very fair deal, and he is sort of becoming a beast.
He's 23 years old, but he was a restricted free agent, so they were in a situation where they were at an advantage because if he had been an unrestricted free agent, I think he probably would have gotten paid a little bit more, and they were able to basically match any deal that they could have made. So I want to say, what it was, about 5 years, $80 million, something in that range?
Yeah, it's pricey, but it's fair.
Eric Gordon had it's one of those things where he just fits better with a team that he actually chose to play for, and the style fits. Really good. The tail end of the Warrior series, obviously you're playing an elite team and do or die situation, but obviously Eric Gordon can't play point guard. So if Chris Paul goes down, then you're in real trouble.
Yeah, they have that problem with a lot of things because they completely gutted their bench to build this build this team, and it's even worse that their Chinese import Zhu Qi went out with a bad knee injury in the preseason, so he's probably gonna be out for the year. And all you really have is
Michael Carter Williams is your backup point guard,
and he hasn't.
And then there's Brandon Knight, but we don't know what's going on with Brandon Knight with his ACL. He's been MIA for over a year.
Well, he'll be out for the beginning of the season, but he'll come back, and he'll be serviceable. And that doesn't mean you can't. They should be able to move his contract afterwards.
Do you think they should have made a better effort to re-sign Luke Mbah-a-Moute?
There's no money for that. They've just pinched every penny they possibly could. It's just.
They're well over the tax. I think they're
well over the tax. They're
$40 million in luxury tax right now.
They're content with that. It's just here's the question, I guess, which it comes down. Can they topple Golden State?
If they're completely healthy, they can. I'm not saying they will because, we already just earlier talked about how I just feel like Golden State's just that's the team. But, yeah, I mean, here's the thing that is sort of disappointing for Houston. You worked that hard to get home court, and it still didn't matter against Golden State. That's the one thing that's really disappointing, that that team is so good. That other team, the Warriors, are so good that they can basically just rip your heart out in a Game 7 in your building and win the championship and smile while walking away. That's the one disappointing part that I kind of came away from in the Western Conference Finals. Because in a situation like that, you usually work that hard and you get that great regular season record so that you could secure the home court. When you do it and then it doesn't matter, it's very, very disappointing. Do you think their game plan in the regular season will change is really what I'm asking you.
I don't think D'Antoni has it in him. I think he's one of those I know one speed and one speed only. And unfortunately, this team has a 1-year window. And that's sort of they have a lot of money committed to Harden coming up. They have a lot of money committed to Chris Paul, and it's going to become so toxic in a few years. Their window has to be this year.
Can James Harden, who's the reigning MVP, can he average 30 and 10? He averaged 30.9 and 8.6 last year.
No.
Too much? Too much volume?
Too much volume. Not if Melo is on the court for a lot because he'll slow it down and want to do iso ball.
I don't think Melo's going to be that much of because remember, him and D'Antoni had to have a heart-to-heart because they had a bitter divorce in New York with the Knicks. So I got a feeling that I don't want to say neutered, but it's going to be a situation where Anthony's going to be walking on eggshells for quite a while.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's going to be on the court for 25 minutes and slow things down.
Mm-hmm.
It's as opposed to just run, gun. It's going to be, he's going to sit there and take 5 seconds before he passes back.
Yeah, it's an excellent team, and the addition of Chris is not a negative. I think they can make something out of some of those extra pieces that they have. Losing Ariza hurts because that was the part of the wingspan that sort of made that team really go at the forward spot with their defense. But I think defensively they'll still be pretty good. Offensively, they're they're the only team. There's maybe like one or two teams that are better than them offensively, if not any. But it just really comes down, can they beat the Warriors? The answer for me, yes, they can. Will they? Probably not. Adam, the LA Clippers. The thing that's weird about this team is that, and I have to make sure I say the LA Clippers, the LAC, because it seems like the Los Angeles Lakers have trademarked Los Angeles. I have to say LA Clippers because I'll never get over the new logo they have. Everyone calls it the EA Sports logo.
Yeah, that's quite unexciting, which I guess you can sort of say about this team is that's the you could say about the you could say something.
Well, what I was going to say is a lot of the strife and a lot of the moving and shaking really happened in the midseason when they had the deal with Blake Griffin where they traded him to Detroit. And they, a lot of the stuff that they got in return pretty much stayed. Avery Bradley re-signed. They kept Boban Marjanovic. Tobias Harris is still a key piece to their core right now. They barely missed the playoffs. They did have a winning record though last year at 42-40. Did you enjoy watching that post Blake version of the Clippers?
Well, what happened was the window got slammed shut, and the same, they kept bringing the team back together, and one by one, they're all gone now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, even Austin Rivers, the cornerstone he was. So
yeah, he was traded to Washington.
The team was just and unfortunately, this team is defined by Gallinari's 50 games that he'll play.
Well, let's see how many games he played. He only played about 20 last year. 15. Now, listen, he averaged 15 points and less than 5 rebounds. We know he's better than that. Gallinari, when he was healthy in Denver, he had the capability of being a 19-point per game guy.
That's the problem of you. Okay, let's say, well, they've done different. I don't know who this Doc Rivers is. He swapped out this aging team with no bench to an extremely deep team with no real stars.
Yeah, and remember, they're still kind of reaping from the benefits of the Chris Paul trade because, yes, you do lose Chris Paul, but they actually got parts in return, when they traded him away to Houston. So they got guys like Montrezl Harrell and help me out here, isn't it Patrick Beverly? A lot of people forget Beverly was even on the team because he was out for the year after like 11 games. But Beverly's one of the best defensive guards in the league. So you kind of wonder if him and Bradley, if they can get their mojo back together, then you got a really good defensive backcourt.
And then you have Lou Williams, who came out of nowhere and would average like 50 points a night for like a month. And...
Yeah, he finished for 22 points a game. But, yeah, there was a stretch around December and January where he was just like nuclear. He had a 50-point game against the Warriors. I remember that a lot of people sort of noted. But, yeah, and then you have DeAndre Jordan, who has been a fixture. He was a fixture of the Lob City part along with Blake Griffin and Chris Paul. And he's gone, but he just departed free agency and signed with the Mavericks. No banana boat fakery this time. He actually did leave. So how do you feel about the exit of Jordan? Like, how big of an exit is that?
I mean, you replaced him with Marcin Gortat, so it wasn't – you're not really losing anything because he was sort of a one-dimensional player in a league.
Yeah, but he had that physical presence, and he was pretty good defensively, and he had excellent field goal percentage. So
yeah, but that was because Chris Paul was lobbing it to him. When you have, Milos Teodosic
he still averaged 64 field goal percentage last year without Chris Paul.
Yeah, but the team has changed. It's now I don't even know whose team it is anymore because Tobias Harris is, we're waiting for him to turn that corner again.
Don't forget when Chris Paul went to L.A. and he threw all that shade at Blake Griffin because they were having the issues, and he basically said it was Lou Williams' team. Remember that? Yeah. But a lot of people feel like that was just him kind of psyching out Blake when Blake was with the Clippers.
Yeah, so, this team is deep. They just don't have anybody, and they just don't have, they got players who are good, but not enough to be playoff good.
I think if you get a fully healthy year out of Gortat, Teodosic, Bradley, and Beverly, that's a team that might be able to sneak into that bottom part, which is exactly where they were last year.
So you're saying if 4 people, because you've already given up on Gallinari, so if 4 people can stay healthy, they have a chance to sneak into the 8th spot. Yeah, that's a very long odds.
Let me ask you that. I mean, we could kind of get to a little bit of the smaller guys on the roster. Like, Wesley Johnson is still there. Harrell is a guy that I'm still fairly high on, along with Boban. Which one do you think will get more playing time? Boban because he can just play pure center, which Doc Rivers has always preferred because he prefers traditional lineups, or do you think Harrell will be the guy?
I guess Montrez have given him sort of free rein, and he was destroying it in practice, and that's what they led him to re-signing him, I believe. So he sort of came out of nowhere, and I expect to see a lot of him.
Yeah, I thought Sindarius Thornwell and Jawan Evans were both good picks. They wound up helping out as bench guys, and it's just one of those ones that bolsters your roster. Bringing back Luke Mbamute again, that'll obviously help you at the small forward spot. Do you think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to get an unreasonable amount of playing time at the point guard spot?
People are rationally high on him all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, it's because he played a lot in preseason with the start.
Yeah, he played a lot, but what's up with your Kentucky guys now? They're becoming like the new Louisville. They're just all underachieving in college, and all of a sudden, they seem to be flourishing.
Well, we don't know yet. I mean, you're talking about that whole crew with Knox and Gilgeous-Alexander, and there's always those ones that don't flame. I mean, look at Tyler Ulis. Tyler Ulis is still looking for a home now. And he was one of the best players Kentucky had. So, it depends on what you consider college good and then NBA good. Some of those guys, they don't work out, in the college atmosphere. And then you go to the NBA and it just clicks. It's just one of those things. Maybe Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be one of those guys. Jerome Robinson, I don't really know much about. Jonathan Motley actually impressed me when he was in Dallas. So I wonder how much playing time he'll be able. Remember, the reason why I'm sort of mentioning the smaller guys is because they were so ravaged with the trades and with injuries that they were forced to play guys like C.J. Williams and Tyrone Wallace and Jameel Wilson way too much.
Yep, and that's sort of why you had two lottery picks and they spent on 2 guards pretty much, and you're like, well, why are you doing that? Well, it's because you were forced to play Darius Thornwell and Austin Rivers the entire game because everybody was injured in your backcourt. So it's
Do you think they're going to miss Austin Rivers?
No, well, yeah.
I know one who's going to miss him.
He was good. Nobody asked him. Nobody said don't take that contract and don't always be overpaid. But he's a decent player. He's a good sixth man.
Were you surprised that Doc Rivers signed the extension?
Kind of.
I was a little taken aback, but I feel like it was one of those situations like you see what's like. I'll give you an example: Sean Payton with the Saints, where you think you're a hot free agent type of coach, but the waters are not the grass isn't always greener. I think Doc was in that situation where he realized, I could go to another place where they have some ready-made players, like say the Wizards, but I still have to start over in some way, shape, or form. So why do I want to do that over again? I'll just go ahead and stay here and make some money.
Okay, it just seems like an awfully expensive team of just meh players.
Yeah, they're like right at the cap, right? They're not even. I don't even think they're over the cap right now.
Oh no, they're. I believe they're near. They're people are getting paid on that team.
Well, that might have a lot to do with the Gallinari part of it, But
you got Gallinari.
Lou Williams did not make a mint on his extension. His was strange because he signed his extension like in April or March. He agreed in principle to a contract well before the free agency kicked off.
Well, yeah, because he's been on like 10 teams in 10 years. Finally, to have some stability is a rare thing. But he's getting paid. Lou Williams is getting some money. You got Gortat.
Yeah. Gortat's in last year, though. So
yeah, but that's the future. That's going to be Tobias Harris' extension is gonna you got to re-sign him next year.
Tobias Harris, he's one of those guys. I sort of he reminds me a little bit. Remember Tim Thomas, the guy who played for the Bucks and the Suns? He's one of those guys that don't matter where you put him, he balls. He goes and he gets you 19 points and 7 rebounds.
He balls, and you wait for him to be like, okay, you're gonna become a superstar now. You're gonna become a superstar now. No, it's just like Derek Favors syndrome, and like, you're just gonna be who you are.
Are they gonna be a winning team?
No.
I would say no too. I think they'll have less wins, and that if you're under 500 in the Western Conference, you're not gonna make it. Adam, it's New Orleans Pelicans time. Just start it off. I'm sick.
I was gonna say the floor is all yours because this team, when it comes down to it, you're just relying on each one more. You could say losing Boogie kind of hurt, but he was gone already through half the year, and Mirotic replaced him. You could say Julius Randle is the low-key smooth signing of the year, where you got him because LA was just desperate to get rid of him for LeBron, and him and Mirotic and Davis will be a nice little threesome there. And you could say I heard Frank Jackson has a pulse and actually hit the court and didn't tear his something or other already.
Yeah, that's true. I heard a rumor about that too.
But in the end, you're just relying on each one more because he's going to be starting halfway through something. And, you lost Rondo. You got Elfrid Payton, who, as a cheap $3 million sign-up, not bad.
Okay. The thing is, if we go to last year, the thing about the Pelicans is that there are phases to this. It began, obviously, because of the pending free agency for DeMarcus Cousins with, can it all work? Can you make a playoff push with Boogie and Anthony Davis and, bringing in Rajon Rondo and re-signing Drew Holiday, which at the time looked like a horrible mistake. DeMarcus Cousins put up crazy numbers with New Orleans. He averaged 25, 12, and 5. He was an incredible player before he tore his Achilles, which was I want to say, what is it, January or February when he tore his Achilles? It was somewhere right before the All-Star break. So
yeah,
it was a tough blow. Then they were able to broker a fairly one-sided deal with the Bulls where they were able to get Nikola Mirotic and unload Omer Asik. They still have not been able to unload Alexis Ajinka's contract, but that might be coming really soon. The thing is, that phase happened, and then you had the new phase with Mirotic, Davis just balling out, fantasy god, Drew Holiday playing really well, Rondo sort of picking up steam, and then you had the playoff Rondo, which has now been coined as a phrase where in the playoffs, him and Drew Holiday were just a nightmare for the Portland Trail Blazers. Anthony Davis was unstoppable. They swept the Blazers, got to the second round. They lost in 5 games to Golden State. Then it got funny with Cousins because they knew it was going to be an embattling type of negotiation. But when the torn Achilles was thrown into the mix, and a torn Achilles is like the worst injury for a basketball player. It has been a pretty reliable predictor of the what's the word I'm looking for? Decreased production for a player. Would you be fair to say that?
Agreed.
Like Elton Brand, Kobe Bryant, give me a couple others. There's a couple others with torn Achilles tendon, right, in the NBA where it just seemed like they just sort of fell off the horse. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Cousins, but I think Dell Demps, the GM for the Hornets or the Pelicans, I just did it, was in a really, really tough spot where if you give him max money and he just doesn't come back and he's overweight and he's only averaging like 18 and 10, then you look like you made a really, really bad decision. But I think but Cousins was so offended by it that he was just willing to just take anything since he wasn't going to be able to get that same deal from another team, and he went and signed for $5 million a year with Golden State, and that's where a lot of the sorrow came from with New Orleans. It's like, do you let this guy go and he signed for less with a better team? It's like, yeah, that's how it works when you go to a better team.
Like you said, it was a shame, but they thankfully had time to adjust for it as opposed to it happening in the playoffs. And, oh no, he's gone. What do we do? He was a big piece.
Yeah, that would have been – I agree with you. That would have been rough because I think they would have made the playoffs if Boogie was healthy anyway. Now, would they have been the same type of team when they played – it's like I'm not saying they would have played Portland. Things may have been different due to wins and losses, but would they have just run roughshod through their first-round opponent? I'm not sure. Because when he changed, they really – like Alvin Gentry, because he was the coach of the Suns when they had Nash and Stoudemire, they really ramped up the pace of their pace. They were third in pace, but they were like the fastest team in the league for like the last few months. And Drew Holiday really, really turned a corner. Like I'm almost to the point where I would say his $26+ million salary is actually justified.
Yeah, but he did have it was just a 1-year resurgence. We always the problem with him is we always keep saying he's made of paper mache, and you think he's gonna play another full season?
Well, he has to. I mean, you got Frank Jackson who's finally healthy. And they don't really have a lot of guys backing him behind him except for Elfrid Payton. And Payton's a very different type of player. He's one of those triple-double type of players. Drew Holiday is more of a scorer who you can play off the ball. That's why him and Rondo worked really well as a backcourt duo, because you could have Rondo sort of be the guy who handles the pick and roll, and Drew can sort of make the plays if you want him to work off the ball. Payton is not that player.
But just again, when you're relying, it comes down to each one more. And Darius Miller, who wasn't a bad signing last year, he got back from Europe, and there's just you have your depth is completely unexciting every year, and this is what happens when you have all your money tied up, and it's just going to be that way now that you have Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis just taking all your pennies. And I mean, again, they got out of a Sheik, so I guess we should call that a win.
Well, I think in the Golden State series that definitely showed that they just did not have the depth to really beat them up because, Golden State didn't have depth either, but they had just enough guys off of the starting lineup to really just wreck New Orleans when Anthony Davis was either not playing, like either sitting out or in foul trouble or whatever the case was, or if Rondo wasn't playing well, like where – that little bit was just enough to just completely run roughshod through New Orleans, and I don't think that really changed at all. But adding Julius Randle is going to help, because Davis sort of embraced running the 5 for New Orleans after Boogie's injury. I don't think that's going to change. I think that he grew very comfortable with that. So do you imagine Julius working as a 4, kind of more of like a stationary 4 along with Davis? Because Randall does have pretty good assists and finesse type of numbers. He averaged he had a couple of triple doubles with the Lakers. Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that he looks like one of those kind of like big guys that you plop in the post, but he's a little bit better than that.
Okay. So I guess the ultimate question comes down to, does this team sneak it back into the playoffs?
Oh, yeah. With Mirotic and Holiday and Davis, yes. Like I think that alone will get you in. Mirotic was fantastic for the Pelicans. Like he fit almost perfectly. He was actually the shooting four that they thought they were getting with Solomon Hill, and he didn't pan out.
No, Solomon Hill was quite disappointing.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he's still there. Solomon Hill's like, hey, I'm still on the team here, making $12 million a year. A couple of additions that they had on but they were smaller ones. Like they signed Jahlil Okafor, more of a traditional center, I guess, just to relieve Davis. We'll see. And Etuan Moore, you talked about, had a surprisingly productive year. We're going to expect more out of him probably. I really like Trayvon Blewett in the D League or in the Summer League. So I do think we're going to see, even though he's on a two-way deal, I do think we're going to see a lot of him.
Well, yeah, because half the team will be injured by December.
Yeah, because the New Orleans has I call it the auctioneer bug, but it's just a horrible injury bug where it just seems like the worst case scenario always happens medically with the Pelicans. Like they always have the most they're the most injured. They have the most DNPs of any team in the league. So,
ladies and gentlemen, you're New Orleans Pelicans.
You're just totally. I'm just at a loss. Like they won 48 games. I think they can. I think they could probably get to 45 or 46. 46 and 36. I think that'll be good enough to make the playoffs. Will they make noise? It depends on really the matchup. Portland looked pretty good going into that thing, and they got ravaged. Now, is that going to happen again? I don't know. I mean, Rondo was a big part of that, and I don't think Peyton and Randall are a suitable replacement for what Rondo was able to bring for them. But we'll see. It's going to be – I think it's a good team. I'll tell you that.
Okay, that's your right to say that. It's just very, very crowded out there out west.
Adam, the Sacramento Kings. Are we at a point where we can really start looking up what Sacramento is the big question here?
They are. I want to defend them. But at the same time, you just want to look at them and go, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
At one point, have they given out a bad contract? They've been saved by certain teams matching.
Okay.
The offer sheets.
You're talking about the Zach LaVine one where they tried to get him for like $80 million.
For $80 million over 4 years. But they ultimately didn't give it out. Have they given out big 4-year deals? No. They gave... Randolph and Vince Carter.
They got out from under they easily got out from under the George Hill deal because the Cavaliers were desperate to get him.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have Timothy Mozgov, Joakim Noah, Albatross on your team. So that's a good thing. Drafting De'Aaron Fox, we like him. Buddy Hield, we like him as a 6-man shooter.
Yeah, but he's not a starting shooting guard. That's the problem. And he doesn't start anyway. But what it is that I think that because of the fact that he was part of the Boogie trade, that they had that there was more in mind for Buddy when he came in, and that's just not what he is. He's more of like the Lou Williams type.
The problem is the rest of the team is all 6'11" and above. Mm-hmm. This is just a power forward, Villanova is like, let's go with 5 guards, and the same thing with the Celtics. It's like we can have Jaylen Brown be a center. All of a sudden here, it's just like, well, we got Bagley. We also have Cauley Stein and Acosta Kufos at center. Power forwards, the more the merrier. We got Labissiere. We got Harry Giles. Let's get Nemanja Bjelica there. Bjelica. Just Zach Randolph is still there. And that's half your roster I just named right there. I'm probably forgetting somebody.
I would have to imagine this is going to be Randolph's last year. Same deal with Kufos. I think they're just waiting it out until it's over, and then they're going to really push forward. I want to ask you this about Willie Cauley-Stein, because I felt like in year 3, that was year 3 for him, correct? I feel like he sort of turned a corner. Do you feel like that they're going to wait it out for him with restricted free agency, or they're going to try to get a deal done?
I think he'll try to bolt as quick as he can, because I think he'll want to get paid, but
he's a restricted free agent.
He's restricted, but he's not a upper echelon player. He's just sort of I think he'll be good and serviceable, but
Well, he's kind of like in that Andre Drummond mold of like he's really big, he's a decent rebounder, but he's much better in terms of steals and the lateral game than the vertical game. He's not as much of a shot blocker, even though his size would tell you the opposite.
yeah. So that's sort of like the strange thing there. Yeah, also they got they got Ben McLemore back. Why?
They wanted to get rid of Garrett Temple's contract.
I don't.
I don't know.
He failed them once, and like, are they gonna get Sauce Castillo when he gets cut from Brooklyn, Philly? Where? I don't even know where he is now.
Let me now they did have another rookie that came in last year along with De'Aaron Fox, Bogdanovich. You like him. You know, you could put him at the 2. I think the luxury of having Bogdanovich was one of the reasons why they were able to take Buddy Hield off of the bench. Do you feel like that they could do anything different with him is the question?
No, because Buddy Hield, you look at his stat line. He shoots like 40% from 3.
He's not a
solid.
Yeah.
Solid 25 minutes. It's like, well, what more do you want from a 6-man than his numbers of somebody who will hit the 3 and give you constant, he'll give you.
And Bogdanovich is better defensively.
Well, Bogdanovich is just better, period. But then again, I was pro Bogdan from day one, so I'm sort of biased.
Now the addition for their big lottery pick this time was Marvin Bagley III. Not too many people saw him because he only played like one summer league game and then they shut him down. He had some pretty good game at Duke, but it's all around the rim. Like he's got to be in the paint to be able to really get to work. I don't think he's got too much of that face to basket game, but maybe I'll be proven wrong. What do you think of Bagley?
Bagley was just the only one who wanted to go there. Everyone else sort of avoided Sacramento, so it's just like, okay. I thought he kind of struggled in the summer league because he sort of is that old school type of player that doesn't work anymore. But who knows with these freshmen? They don't even know what they are to begin with. So outside of, a sure thing, he'll be a developmental player.
I mean, I think he'll start. And I mean, even though they signed Bielisa, I don't know if Bielisa's guaranteed to be a starter either.
He'll be a bench up. He'll be a bench up.
Bench up.
Wow. He'll be a bench backup stretch 4.
Yeah, and I think Yogi Ferrell will get his fair share of starts. I actually envision some situations where Ferrell might start and De'Aaron Fox might be in relief at times, if they just to try it out until De'Aaron Fox is 100% ready to take on starters minutes. And then the one that kind of I wonder about that is that Yogi Ferrell is a very, very small point guard, of course, but he was productive in Dallas. But what do you do with Frank Mason III, who's almost in the same vein, but just like a not as good version of Yogi Ferrell?
They're cheap deals. They're cheap backups. So, injuries could come plenty and they could come fast. So
you just got no size at the point guard position whatsoever.
You got no size at in the backcourt period.
Mm-hmm.
And then we mentioned Bogdanovich, but they have another one of their, I think, lottery pick, or maybe it was 15th was Justin Jackson, who I guess people are starting to turn on to, but his first year was invisible. And
the problem with Sacramento is, like, we talked about the little guards, and then they got all those trees, like, Randolph and Kufos and Bagley, because Bagley's huge. He's like 6'11". But, like, the thing is, like, you got no small forward. So that's where Justin Jackson would fit right in if he was the guy. We also didn't talk about Iman Shumpert. There's a good likelihood Shumpert will never play a game there. So
no, he'll probably just get bought out halfway through the year.
We didn't even talk about Scala Bissiere. That was also a reason why Garrett Temple played a lot. Because they just needed somebody who could play that 3 spot, unless you wanted to go super big. The problem is you can't go big when your point guards are that small, unless your point guards are just absolutely sensational in pick and roll and lobbing and all that stuff. And that's not really the game that De'Aaron Fox plays.
No, he's just a pure speedster.
Mm-hmm. And he's really good. I mean, he had a nice rookie year. He averaged, let me see here, like 11 points, just under 3 rebounds, but he averaged 4 assists and almost a steal per game. Team stat-wise, offense is where the improvement absolutely has to come in. I just don't know if they really did anything just by adding Bagley and Bielisa and Yogi.
Oh, no, they didn't add anything. They'll still be a lottery pick, and they owe their pick to I don't even know who anymore because everybody traded all.
And they're not going to shoot a lot of threes. That's the other thing. So
Buddy Hield will be the only one shooting threes, and yeah, they're going to be another 30-win team, but I think
30's generous. I think they'll be winning 27 games again, just like they did last year.
There's players to watch this year, and if Harry Giles is what he was in high school, that's a steal right there.
Yeah, they basically had a medical waiver on Giles. It wasn't that he wasn't ready to play. It was just that they wanted to monitor how his progress was in the G League before they gave him like NBA minutes, basically. I don't even think he played a game in the NBA, right?
Nope.
I mean, I know he got a little bit of run in the G League, but yeah, you know, and I mean, some of the departures they had were very small things, like, you know, we talked about Hill, but Hill was already traded in the trade deadline. Vince Carter, Jakar Sampson, like Papagiannis barely played. Like, there really wasn't much that they lost in terms of like what they had last year. So I feel like we're gonna have more of the same.
That's pretty much the story of the Kings, just more of the same back in the lottery.
I'm not trying to be unexciting about it. It's just I feel like they have some pieces that are interesting, like Bagley and Fox and Hield, but it's not there yet. They are definitely like a couple more pieces away from even.
They need a superstar. They're a couple pieces away from being Denver when they were a couple pieces away.
That's true. Adam, things changed really quickly for the Portland Trailblazers. It literally changed in 4 games.
It didn't really change because this is what their GM had built. And it's not... Okay, fine, it is the GM's fault that the team fell apart the way they fell apart because he built it.
So you're blaming Neil O'Shea for all of this. It's not Terry Stotts' fault, who was rumored to, like, remember when they got eliminated by the Pelicans because they got swept, like, and it wasn't like a gentleman's sweep. It was like merciless. Like, they got dominated in the series. That Terry Stotts was actually on the, like, they were thinking about firing him. But
yeah, he was on the hot seat.
I don't know if that would have been reasonable if they'd actually let him go.
But what could somebody else do with this team? What do you think, like a spark plug, Kerr can do to them? Nothing, because the roster was built as it is. As we've said before, every time when you have 2 players who are the same position, not the same player, like McCollum and Lillard, same strengths and same weaknesses, you're hurting yourself. And like the bad contracts that they gave out to Turner and then to Harkless and
Myers Leonard, yeah,
Miles Leonard, you everybody had to become a cap casualty. Ed Davis and Shabazz Napier had to leave because you ran out of money for them, and you see, like, you read the tweets and you read the news. The team was like legitimately bummed out because they lost 2 solid bench players because, well, you gave shitty money to other people.
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem. Like, that was in the summer 2016 when they did a lot of those deals that you were talking about, and they've been in that situation ever since that happened. Now, they made the playoffs both in 2017 and in 2018, but in the 2018 season, they won 49 games. They really came on strong in the last few months of the season. Lillard was an MVP candidate pretty much for everybody. He averaged like 27 points, 6 assists. He was 3-point shooting machine. McCollum is, I mean, his big contract kicks in this year, but like I don't want to say he's like overpaid or undeserving. CJ McCollum is a really, really good player.
Oh, agreed, but he's the exact same player as Damian Lillard, who is a really good player. And since you paid those 2 guys, look at their bench and name me one player who's good.
Well, they had Alan Crabb.
And they had a lot of people.
And they had Ed Davis, like you said. So, like, that was the problem. Like, you got into that penny pinching mode because you didn't want to hit the tax with a mediocre team that wasn't going to get out of the first round. So you cut your losses. They had to do the thing where they took Andrew Nicholson's contract on, and then they stretched Andrew Nicholson. So just so that they could get
5 more years of his stretch contract.
Yeah. Well, who did they have to get off their books in order to do that? It was somebody. Was it Crab?
To stretch Nicholson?
Yes, to take on Nicholson's contract.
Yes, that was the deal. Was you take Nicholson, and that because people were like, why didn't Brooklyn get a first? It's like, no, you take.
So what I'm saying is that you were chopping away at your depth, and at that point, that's when the draft really has to bail you out. And the draft really didn't do much for him. They got Caleb Swanigan, didn't really do much. Zach Collins actually showed some life in the playoffs when they got super desperate against the Pelicans when they realized that they were staring down the barrel. So they played Collins more as like a stretch five when Nurkic got in foul trouble, but that's not like a long-term type of a thing. That's the kind of worry. The one thing I kind of wondered too is why did they let Pat Connaughton walk and they re-signed Jake Layman instead? That was kind of interesting.
That was just I have one contract for you two. Who wants it? Layman was like, well, I'll take it. Whereas Connaughton's like, I think I can make more. Mm-hmm. Not much more, but I think I could be more efficient and I can help my career better if I move elsewhere. Yeah,
Harkless is basically what he is. He's a decent shooter, but he doesn't really provide that two-way game. The four main guys are Lillard, McCollum, who we talked about, Jusuf Nurkic, who re-signed for reasonable money, which they were very thankful for because they needed to do anything they could to get him under. And then Al-Farouq Amino's actually played fairly well for them. And when he was injured, and not having Aminu in the starting lineup really hurt the Blazers in the regular season.
Oh, it really hurt him, and then don't forget they traded for Noah Vonleh, who did nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had to trade him to the Bulls. He didn't really provide, but they got so desperate at the point guard spot, especially now that Napier's gone, that they had to bring in Wade Baldwin the fourth. He's basically the backup point guard. And then who did you bring in also? Anthony Simons, the guy who came out of high school.
Yep, he was their draft pick, and who was the guy? Seth Curry. Who didn't play last year.
Unfortunately, it's not Steph Curry. It's Seth Curry.
who's not bad of a cheap signing, but you already had Shabazz Napier, who was a decent cheap signing. So the question, this was, again, going back to what I said, this is what the GM wanted. I have my team for 4 years. We're not going to mess with the core. Everybody's going to grow together. We're going to get our cohesion will be 1,000%, and we should be golden. So, no, you can't make a big move if this is what was constructed.
But here's the problem. You got the same issue that Washington has with John Beal. Oh, my God. John Wall and Bradley Beal. Lillard and McCollum, the scuttlebutt is that they don't get along. So what do you do there? They've been sort of dancing around it for the whole summer. But there is a point where you have to face the music. Is it going to be one of those him or me type of situations?
He has to trade one of them because they both still have a ton of value. So you could trade him and get out of maybe an Evan Turner.
Their contracts both expire in 2021, which is funny. So there's really no – and their contract Lillard makes more, but not by that much compared to McCollum. So it's almost equal. It's almost a flip them.
Yeah, so you could take him and Mo Harkless and trade it for a bounty if you wanted to. It's just okay. This team will make the playoffs. Safe to say. Mm-hmm. A solid 6 seed, maybe.
Well, they always make the playoffs, so I'll just say yes too. Is Terry Stotts in trouble?
Maybe.
I can see
if they care that much, but
if they have a losing record in the first month or two, Stotts might get fired.
He might, but at the same time, what can he do if they penny pinched his bench away from him? If any of their starters go out, there's nobody in the backup to.
Well, here's the funny part. A lot of the people were saying they had a very good bench going into the playoffs, and then the Pelicans just exposed them. So what does that mean for them now that they had to double down? And the only guys that you really got to replace them were Curry, like you said, Anthony Simons, Gary Trent Jr., and Nick Stauskas. That's not suitable to replace Napier, Connaughton, and Ed Davis. So do they have a good bench at all?
No, they have a terrible bench, and it's very concerning.
Yeah. Do you think Zach Collins can be a starter for them?
No.
Myers Leonard, is that a tradable contract? Because at this point, I think you just got to move him.
Who isn't a tradable contract? We said this about so many people, and then all of a sudden they get traded. So you can tie him to somebody better, and there's a chance.
I think that's the one. Well, the biggest one is Evan Turner, but the thing about Evan Turner that's weird is that he does provide value, especially if you bring him off the bench as like a spark plug. Like he does do things that can help your team, but at $17+ million a year, yeah,
he's good. Mm-hmm. But he was the same thing when DeMauri Carroll went to Toronto. He doesn't fit that team. He is an old school mid-range jumper type guy who this team doesn't run that. So again, you're going to be a 6 seed out in the first round, probably swept again. Okay, thanks.
And the thing is, too, like they were 30th in assists. That's not going to change if your backcourt is the fixture of your team. Like I don't think Damian Lillard's just all of a sudden going to be give me a good example of like a high assist type of a guy, like a John Wall. Like I don't think he's just going to change his style. Oh man, Damian Lillard's looking at everybody else saying like, you got to rally around me. And that's where I think a lot of the strife comes from. So what I'm saying is that in terms of team stats, defensively they were solid, and three-pointers they were solid. But I don't see anything changing. I don't see this huge like culture change in Portland. It's going to be basically the same type of team.
They just need to make a move. I think that's what needs to. They got to do something. Anything.
Nurkic is a really good player though. But he's a traditional center. There's only so much you can do with him is the problem.
But he's on a nice deal. It's just you have, I don't want to say you have a log jam, but you've just stacked your team very lopsided to one side. So they need to make a move.
Yeah, if you're a championship team, that's okay to lopside your contracts. This is not a championship team. That's the problem. Adam, you talk about a bloodletting at the bottom of the core. The Dallas Mavericks just like flushed the toilet after their like top 5 guys, and did a little bit of changing around. But it seems like their additions weren't really like that steep. It just seemed like that they were just running through one G League player after another. I don't want to call it tanking, but I think Mark Cuban called it tanking.
They admitted to tanking. And they got the piece they wanted. They got Dennis Smith Jr. last year. This year they got Luka Doncic, who I think I was one of the early ones.
You're super high on Luka Doncic.
And you're like, who? I'm like, no, there's this 17-year-old kid who's starting for Real Madrid, who's starting in the Spanish league at 17. Like, that doesn't happen. So and then all of a sudden they magically got him, and this team has nowhere to look up.
Well, let's talk about how they got him. They made a trade with Atlanta because Atlanta wanted Trae Young. So Dallas took Trae Young, and then they just swapped out. But I think they had to give up a future pick in order to do that.
They gave him a first-round pick in this year, a first-round protected pick in this year's draft. But the thing that I don't get about this team is, well, we have already said, why did you give a max deal to Harrison Barnes? You're just going to waste the prime of his career getting garbage stats. And then you signed DeAndre Jordan for 1 year because Mark Cuban just has that, I guess, just obsession with players who I guess played good against him. Mm-hmm. So, man, I tried to sign him like 4 years ago. I still gotta get him.
Did you find the irony in the DeAndre Jordan signing with all the stuff that happened about 4 years ago? And then kind of like DeAndre sort of grew up and said, you know what, let's go ahead and do this.
It's just I don't understand the fit of that. So you have these 2 young guys who are developing, and you have these 2 guys who...
I can explain the fit for Dallas. They desperately needed a big man. You know, they had to play guys
they desperately
like
did, but
Ujiri, and they had to play who was the other, Max Kleber. Like, they had to play all these guys that just did not deserve to be on an NBA court, to be honest with you.
They did, but it's just like, well, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to be the 10th place team in the West? Like, you're not going to be the basement, but you're not going to be much higher than the basement. So I don't. It's like a half and half team, like a just Jekyll and Hyde. You have Wesley Matthews, like I said, Matthews, Barnes, and Jordan. Yeah, okay, I see it. That they could be, 3rd and 4th options on a nice playoff team. Okay, you got 2 essential rookies.
Wesley Matthews, just be thankful you're at the end of his contract, because he was just, let's just call a spade. He was a disappointment.
He was.
He's a starters level guy, But
he was solid. They had to overpay to get him from Portland at the time, and he was good his first year or two. And then it's just, he sort of fell apart.
Is this going to be the Dirk Nowitzki farewell tour, or are you kind of looking more forward to seeing Dennis Smith Jr., who was their really good rookie point guard, along with Doncic and the arrival of Jordan? Do you feel like there's a little bit more sauce to this team than just the pageantry of watching Dirk Nowitzki, trot out the last year of his career?
Well, it's different than Kobe because, Dirk
makes $5 million. It's completely different.
Yeah, he was the ultimate professional of, I'll take less money. Yeah, I'm at the end of my career. Let's just, I'm doing what's good for the team. I'm going to defer to other people. I know I don't have it in me anymore, but, I still want to be around. He took the backup role gracefully, which, as we've seen with a lot of stars, a lot of them can't do that.
He still shoots 40% from three. He averaged 12 points and under 6 rebounds. I mean, he's not garbage. Like, I've seen a lot of guys who got way too much playing time at their advanced age who just could not play anymore. I can't.
On
Dirk
defense,
defensively, he's very bad. Yeah, defensively.
That's the thing is, he can only play against the second unit now, and even that, it's just his defensive is just he doesn't have it anymore. All he could do is just post up, hit a three, and take your farewell tour. Same thing when the wheels came off Paul Pierce. It was just like, wow, that happened so fast.
Do you think Dennis Smith can lead the team in scoring, or do you think that's sort of Barnes' spot? Now, Barnes is coming off of an injury to start the season. So do you think that Smith can sort of, like, in Barnes' absence, take the leap and be the leader of the team?
I think Barnes will still be it, but now Smith can do some pick and rolls with Jordan. Mm-hmm. So, and Doncic is just, light years ahead of where any rookie should be, since he was playing in European championships as opposed to skipping out of classes after your team was out of the first round of the NCAA.
And Doncic is good. Like he's got, if you watch him in preseason, like he's got that type of game that everybody saw him in Eurobasket and international ball. Like he can play at the NBA level. He's that
just super high IQ, and it's funny. It's like, well, we need more lottery balls to get that transcendent player. You mean like the one you just traded away? Like,
yeah. The only thing that really worries me is that after Dennis Smith, you kept JJ Barea, you let Yogi Ferrell go. Jalen Brunson you drafted in the second round. I liked him. I don't know if he's an NBA prospect. And then you don't really have a lot of guys behind you. So if Dennis Smith gets injured, and he does have a bad torn ACL on his record when he was in high school, that kind of worries me about the Dallas Mavericks. They're not going to have a good backup point guard.
Well, again, what's to worry about the Mavericks? There's no real playoff. Like, I don't even think they could even try to sneak into the eighth spot.
I think Cuban's thinking, maybe this year he sort of has that in mind, but I don't think he has tanking in mind.
He doesn't have tanking in mind, but I don't think they're good enough to be anything better than just bad.
What do you think of Dwight Powell? Do you think he's a decent player in the NBA?
No, I don't think he's anything special.
Okay. Because, he's there averaging 8 points and 6 rebounds. I mean, you're stuck with him,
Yeah, but
too.
that's nothing. You're stuck with nothing special. So, Dallas, finally the tanking's over. You have new cornerstones to build around. So, we're in a couple of years to long-term future, looking very good. Short-term, kind of frustrating.
Yeah, and I totally forgot Devin Harris went back, but who cares? Let me ask you this. Who's going to retire first, Devin Harris or Dirk Nowitzki?
Devin Harris he's still kicking, so he can still.
I'm going to tell you, man, when he was first with Dallas, he was really good. Like, he was like a speedster, huh? Yeah,
but, just as a backup guy, he's content with that, so nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things with Cuban where, obviously there was that whole workplace issue thing that he had to work out. Had a pretty significant – didn't he pay a very significant portion to, like, non-profit organizations that sort of kind of, like, patch it up? So he had a few other things on his mind, along with the fact that the team was sort of kind of like, muddling through this kind of shitty season. So there was just a lot that was going on there. I'm not saying everything is cleared up for them, but I feel like they have a better vision of what they want to do. I don't want to completely like fall into this whole storyline that they fell into Luka Doncic and they're so blessed. Like I need to see the baby first.
Oh, you don't want to fall into Rubio syndrome?
Yeah, pretty much.
But either way, that's more excitement we've heard from Dallas for the past 3 years. So.
Oh my God, yeah! Like last year, it was bad. It was rough. Yeah, people were praying that Dennis Smith Jr. was going to be good. The problem was Dennis Smith Jr. was good, but he wasn't good enough to make them even mediocre.
Well, no, he wasn't transcendent.
No.
And with that being said, that is the entire preview of all 30 teams.
I know, pretty exhausting, huh?
It took a while, but now here comes just the rapid fire. Let's just pick our awards.
Okay.
We both said Golden State. Who's getting MVP?
Not LeBron James, because it seems like he never does. Give me just you know what? You go first.
I'll probably go with Westbrook.
Durant. Durant will.
That's to say, Westbrook, Durant, or Harden.
Okay.
Doesn't really.
I think Durant's gonna legitimately take the lead in Golden State. Like it will be his team. Truly.
Okay. Rookie of the year.
It'll be. We just talked about. I think it would be easy to say Doncic. Ayton's gonna get a lot of playing time in Phoenix.
That's the thing. He's going to be the big stat bad team guy.
I think Trae Young's going to get a lot of playing time in Atlanta.
But he needs to find a shot.
I'll go with Doncic because I think Doncic will play about 30 minutes a game.
I think it'll be Ayton.
Okay.
Fairly easy. Sixth man.
Sixth man. I'll say Buddy Hield.
Buddy Hield. I think I want to just sort of cop out and probably go Lou Williams.
Okay. You think
you
think Lou Williams will still come off the bench in LA?
Over Avery Bradley?
Yeah.
No, it's Avery Bradley and Teodosic.
Maybe the Lakers can do something funny with Josh Hart or Condavious Caldwell-Pope or Kuzma or something like that. Make a gimmick out of it. The thing about six man, it's weird. Wasn't that the one where Jamal Crawford won and everyone's like, well, we didn't have anybody else to give it to?
Yeah, that's sort of I think that's sort of where they're at now. Eric Gordon win it by default because he could probably get it again. Most improved player, my pick has been shot. I was going to say it was cousin DeJounte, but torn ACL, that he probably would have been shooing. Now he was starting.
I'll say Jamal Murray for the Denver Nuggets. I think Jamal Murray's going to average 20 points a game.
That is, I will not argue.
Well, let me ask you this: does Lonzo Ball have a realistic shot?
No,
I know that's the thing we'll talk about because he had such a poor rookie year in terms of a scoring.
He didn't have a poor rookie year.
As a scorer, I corrected myself
because people expected too much out of him. And it was just well, he has the assists and the rebounds. He's not going to be the triple-double guy you thought he was because we all knew he couldn't shoot.
Since that's a regular season award, is Jason Tatum a viable candidate for MIP since he averaged 13 points and 5 rebounds in the regular season?
Well, based upon stats, then, Markelle Fultz should be the Rookie of the Year since he played a game or two last year.
Here's the thing.
Most improved.
I really do think in Philadelphia their game plan is to start McConnell all 82 games. If they can. And then they'll have Fultz come off the bench. And then once McConnell departs in free agency and gets overpaid, then Fultz is the starter next in 2019-20. I think that's the game plan.
I don't know. It's just with preseason, still reading it. It's just they try to he's back, but not buying it really. And defensive player of the year?
Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think that Budenholzer is going to double down on defense.
I'll probably just go with Gobert again, or maybe Draymond will be angry and try extra hard. Any other? I don't think I'm missing any other
team that might surprise.
Who's the Indiana Pacers of this year? I don't really have one because this league this year is so very top heavy. You have 5 or 6 good teams up top, and then it falls off immediately.
I'll say that, and maybe I might be contradicting the preview we did for that particular team because, with the previews you're always kind of going back and forth. I think Milwaukee might be one of those 50-win team type of deals. I think all the pieces might fit.
Okay, and then fine, the dumpster fire team.
Oh, I think Atlanta is going to be awful.
Oh, so you think the dumpster fire in Minnesota is going to cool off before then?
Well, let me ask you this: where do you think Jimmy Butler will land?
I don't even know anymore because I guess just reports that Thibodeau is just ruining everything up there.
Did you hear the story about how Pat Riley cursed him out on the phone?
Allegedly, yes. And
I love that story.
Other than that, any final?
Do you think the Lakers will be a dumpster fire potentially?
No, but I don't think they're going to be this 3 seed that everybody claims they're going to be.
I mean, I don't know. I keep going back and forth with the Lakers because it's so new. It's just so different.
But they're a 1-year team. They're going to be a lot different in the trade deadline when they get rid of half the fodder, and then when the other half expires, that the other half of the team is going to be gone. This roster you see now will not be here in February.
Give me a bold prediction. I mean, your definition of bold.
Bold prediction. I thought we already said San Antonio wasn't going to make the playoffs, but now that seems to be all but assured. I'm going to say Pop retires.
Okay. Either Bradley Beal or C.J. McCollum gets traded. For
each other.
That would make zero sense. Let me say this: Boston making the finals is not bold on face. If I guaranteed that Boston would go to the finals, is that bold?
No, everybody's expecting him to.
But I guarantee it.
That's just your guarantee.
I plant my flag.
Fair enough.
I mean, I know you're kind of apprehensive about that. You don't want to jinx.
I'm not going to argue.
I know you reverse jinx bullshit. You don't want to jinx your Celtics. I know how you're doing it.
I will say this about the Celtics, and we will wrap on this. I tell the same thing to you that I tell to everyone else. They are just a small team, and they will be out rebounded by everybody.
Yeah, but let me ask you this: if they have Kyrie and they have Gordon Hayward at the 3 or the 4, who's going to outscore them?
But that's the thing is they need to hit every basket. If they have a cold shooting day, they're done. They're sunk in the first quarter because they need to shoot themselves back in, and that's kind of hard when you have that. You've already started. I wouldn't be surprised to see from the Celtics to have a 10 for 48 3-point shooting night.
Yeah.
Because we're cold. Well, what's the only thing we can do to get out of it? Well, we need to keep shooting. Fuck, it's not working. Well, you can't grind. They're not a team that could grind their way back in. Is what I'm saying.
I'm just unreasonably excited to watch the Tatum, Brown, Rozier, and Smart kind of force that we saw in the playoffs. I really want to see them working with Horford, Irving, and Hayward. I think that's going to be awesome I think there's going to be one of those streaks like Miami had where they go a month and a half without losing a game. That's how good they're going to be.
All right, but it's been a pleasure doing this with you yet another year. I look forward to the regular season.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think we're done yet, huh? We still have to talk about basketball, or is this it?
Next up is the regular season.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't have to go through too much of the schedule. They always lopside those first weeks with some kind of sexy games. There's probably some awesome Warriors game or Laker game or Sixer game that we haven't talked about. But we talked. I remember you and I talked about let's kind of hold off on talking about the first week, and then Gordon Hayward breaks his leg, and we're like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to talk about it.
I will put it this way: let's hold off on talking about the first week of the schedule because I recall our NBA draft preview coming out after the draft.
Yeah, well, there were other reasons for that. But on behalf of Adam Murray, this is Andrew Riche. This has been so much fun, but we're looking forward to the season. Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening.